Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you are well. Today, I want us to learn some lessons about consumption trap and lessons from Singapore. Allow me to share some presentation I have made here. And we have talked previously about this consumption trap. And I want us to go through some facts in Singapore. We talked about consumption trap is where you are forced to spend money and you keep on spending money. Like when we say that the middle class spend money on liabilities, thinking that they are assets. So Singapore was a country which got independence around the same time with Kenya, and they had to take very drastic measures to ensure that their economy would survive. Today, Singapore is one of the top economies in the world with an unemployment rate of 2.1% as at 2025 second quarter. And I think an inflation rate less than 1.5%. Singapore did not start this thing on an easy footing. They forced, or the Singaporeans were forced to do some saving. They would contribute almost to a tune of 40% of their income to a central provident fund. And the aim of that was to build a capital reserve and make credit afterwards cheaper. And when they built this CPF, that the Capital Provident Fund, there was limited accessibility to these funds. Somebody had to be at least 55 years and above to be able to access this. In Kenya, currently, we have NSSF, which is some redeemer to those who are in self-employment, also to those who are in employment schemes, majorly private employment, with no existing pension schemes. You remember there is a time one would contribute 200 in NSSF and the employer would contribute 200. That would come to 400 shillings. You can imagine in a year that is 4,800. If you have worked for a whole 20 years, the capital you've contributed in NSSF would be 96,000. When you retire, would this money really help you? There was that challenge. Today, the minimum contribution is 480 and the employer tops up the same, or maximum contribution is 4,320, the employer tops up the same. Even if you do not have an existing pension scheme, we are talking about 9,000 or 8,640 shillings contributed every month. In a year, roughly, that is around 96,000. In 10 years, that is 960,000. In 20 years, it's around 1.92 million. Without bringing in the growth in that money, at least this is money that would be able to take care of you if you retire. And by the time you are able to access this money, the government could be using this money. Remember, it is being invested to either give free credit, do infrastructure projects the way Singapore did. The next we talked about the consumption trap, where as your incomes keep on rising, you keep on increasing your spending, and this reduces your savings. There is the short-term satisfaction that replaces the long-term resilience, or you are not able to deal with long-term things. The risk here is you will be vulnerable to shocks. You remember COVID-19 when it came. You will not be able to have growth. You will be stagnant. Your expenditure increases way higher than your income levels. And we talked about Singapore, what they did, and so on. Now, what lessons can we learn? The first lesson, you need to guard your life, or you need to guard yourself against lifestyle inflation. I normally say that if you get a salary increment and within 3 months you are not able to take somewhere that increment for investment, your lifestyle will automatically adjust to that. Singapore kept saving rates high through the Central Processing Provident Fund. And here, the lesson is you need to resist matching spending to income gains. As your income gains, do not be quick to adjust your spending. The next lesson we can learn from this is maintain high savings. Remember, we talked about the Central Provident Fund, where it was a mandatory saving. You are probably complaining that NSSF increased from 200 to 4,320. This is for your own good. If this money is utilized well, if there are no loopholes, if there are no corruption mechanisms where this money can lose its capital, if this money is growing, it has the element of compounding, the saving is good. Remember, you will be needed to contribute the maximum 4,320. Your employer will also contribute the same. If you are in an employment scheme where there is a pension and the employer says, whatever you contribute, they double, my friend, take advantage of that and contribute more. Remember, even in these schemes, there is the number of years. If it's a provident fund, there is a number of years that you contribute, and you can be able to get your money back, your capital and its interest are tax-free. The first 600,000 shillings from a pension scheme is usually not taxed. The government encourages mechanism even on pension scheme. The first 30,000 that is contributed towards pension scheme, it is not taxed. So when you maintain high saving rates, this supports retirements, healthcare schemes, and the lesson here, structural saving policies help to counter overspending. The next lesson, limit debt-fueled consumption. Here, middle class, you are prone to using credit cards. After all, I will pay at the end of the month. You are prone to buying liabilities that are disguised as assets. You want to buy a fuel guzzler, not knowing that this, you've taken a loan to buy this guzzler. Secondly, you are not knowing that this increases fuel consumption, increases insurance consumption, their spare parts are way more. I am not saying that you should not consume. I'm talking about debt-fueled consumption. If you are to consume, use your passive income. I have talked about this several times. So this prevents overextension during good times. The lesson here, have guardrails that protect households and the economy. Remember, when we mess financially, the biggest blame we put on the government. You remember the story of Serikali Saidia. Invest in productive assets. That is another lesson we can learn from Singapore. They were able to invest. Remember about the CPF, the Central Provident Fund. This money, when it is put together, would be invested in infrastructure, in education, in sovereign wealth funds, in port. The port of Singapore is the second busiest port in the world after Shanghai in China. And this needed money to be able to make it a very efficient port. So you will avoid short-term consumption urges, what we call gratification. You are using money today. So the lesson here, growth will be sustained by reinvestment. The next aspect, you need to have a lesson that shapes your cultural norms. You need to promote savings and to avoid being spendthrift. There should be social pride in prudence, not excess. People should not look at how much do you spend, maybe how much do you invest. And this is a culture that is as important as an economic policy. The other aspect is about housing. This is a double-edged sword. It will build equity and stability, but if you are not very keen, if you build this using debt and so on, it can cause increased debt burdens. Singapore was able to, through the Central Provident Fund. Remember the Central Provident Fund, I want to keep on reminding you, it was where people were forced to save. Whether you like it or not, it was very painful at the initial stages, but this would avoid things like debt. So people would build these assets and the housing scheme. Singapore has very good housing mechanisms where it would be funded using the Central Provident Fund. The lesson here, you need to balance the asset growth with affordability. Do not say because I want to build a house, you go and take a mortgage for that you will pay for the next 20 years, for the next 30 years. You will not be able to make you any financial progress just because you have a mortgage and now you are living in your own place. Plan ahead for slower growth. Remember, everything has stages. There is a time, good times, and we normally say that even if there is progress, at times there could be increasing at an increasing rate or increasing at a decreasing rate. Singapore concerned was concentrating about productivity and innovation early enough. They were able to anticipate cost pressures before being trapped. So here you are supposed to adopt early. Don't wait for crisis when growth is slower. Then you start saying, now I will start doing this. That person with a young family, that person who have just recently been employed, that person who have not started a family, we normally say that your first pay slip should be the first plan towards your pension scheme. The earlier you start planning, the better for your future. There will get a point if you have 2 or 3 children in high school, and each high school you are paying a good high school. Let me take those high schools that are paid sometimes to the extent of 150,000 a year. If you have 3 kids in high school, that's a whole 450,000. Close to 40,000 shillings every year goes towards school fees. And you could have propelled or you could have prepared for this early enough, maybe by investing in projects, in investments, in assets. You can have education policies that are maturing when these kids are getting to high school. Now, after that, what are we supposed to learn in summary? Save before you spend. The first time you get your payslip, save before you spend. Start planning for your pension the first day you get some income from a business, from a payslip. Limit debt-driven lifestyles. Don't be very quick to adjust your lifestyle through debt. The next is invest in productivity, not status. Social media, you are posting your trips to Singapore. Singapore, by the way, is a very beautiful country. And these trips to Singapore, you are using your active income. These trips to Singapore, you are taking loans. Invest in assets that will generate you passive income. And at that time, you can decide even to tour the world with cruise ship. And you will feel guilt-free. You will not be guilty for that. Shape culture to support discipline. Remember, consistency builds discipline. Have a savings culture that will make you have discipline. And then plan for the long term. We normally say that prepare your life as if you will live for eternity. In terms of savings and so on, take care of the future. Learn from the ant. In the days of plenty, or in the days where there is no rain, it saves. Let me stop at that. Let's keep on learning. You can feel free to engage me, and we shall learn from this. Remember, financial literacy is the way to freedom. Wish you well.